Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Well guys, in today's lecture we will discuss the effect of neurotoxins on our body, that how they affect and where they affect. And in this lecture we will discuss basically three toxins that coming from spiders, snakes and snails. So before starting this, we will have a short brief introduction of synaptic transmission, that what synaptic transmission is, as we have discussed it so many times in our previous lectures, that what synapses is. Synapses is the gap or junction between two neurons. So at chemical synapses, neurons communicate with each other through a process, and that process is known as synaptic transmission. So main important part for synaptic transmissions are special secretory compartments in the nerve terminal known as synaptic vesicles. There are several hundred synaptic vesicles clustered within each nerve terminal, and each of them is filled with chemical molecule that is known as neurotransmitter. So guys, synaptic vesicles are clustered around a special region of the nerve terminal membrane called the active zone. So synaptic transmission begins when the appropriate signal called an action potential reaches the nerve terminals. So as it reaches the nerve terminal, it triggers one or possibly several synaptic vesicles to fuse with the presynaptic plasma membrane and release their neurotransmitters content. So neurotransmitter molecule diffuse across a very small gap between the presynaptic and postsynaptic neuron, that is known as synaptic cleft. So guys, once the neurotransmitters release and they reach the postsynaptic neuron, they bind and activate special neurotransmitter receptors on the other cell, and the other cell is postsynaptic cell, of course. So the other cell may be a muscle cell or gland or neuron, and activation of the neurotransmitter receptor generates a response in the postsynaptic neuron, and with this, communication transfer between the neurons is almost complete. So synaptic transmission is really very fast process, that there is only about 1 millisecond between the arrival of the action potential in the nerve terminal and the postsynaptic response. So this fast synaptic transmission occurs every time you move, every time you see, every time you taste, every time you smell, every time you hear or touch something. Every thought, memory and behavior you have is a result of complex pattern of synaptic transmission between neurons. So actually, what happens when signal arrives at your muscle cell? And that is known as neuromuscular junction. Okay, when a presynaptic neuron release its content to your muscle, and that is known as neuromuscular junction. So what happens? Presynaptic nerve terminal will release neurotransmitter. Of course, that will bind to your muscle and will make it to perform action, and that may be contraction or that may be relaxation. Well, in order to achieve this complex function, nervous system uses many different chemicals as neurotransmitters. In fact, more than 100 non-chemical compounds are considered neurotransmitters, and they may be of two types, like excitatory and inhibitory, and some of them perform both actions, excitatory and inhibitory, and we are not going to discuss them in our this lecture. We will discuss them in our next lecture. So what excitatory neurotransmitters do? As their name indicating that they will excite or they will increase the activity of postsynaptic neuron that detect them. And inhibitory neurotransmitters, okay, what they will do? Inhibitory neurotransmitters inhibit or decrease the activity of the neuron that detect them. So most neurotransmitters are excitatory, like the glutamate is one of the most important excitatory neurotransmitter in our brain, okay, because more than half of our synapses in the brain and spinal cord use glutamate as a neurotransmitter. So it's generally considered the most important neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. And acetylcholine is another excitatory neurotransmitter that is used in the peripheral nervous system and causes muscle contraction, and it will excite the muscle by initiating action potential. So the major inhibitory neurotransmitter is called GABA, that stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. And now what will happen if it release at neurotransmitter junction? It will stop muscle contraction, and definitely it will lead toward muscle relaxation. So guys, some spiders, snails and snakes along with many other animals in nature produce harmful substances that selectively attack the nervous system, and these substances are known as neurotoxins, and these are poisonous substances and they may alter the function of nervous systems. Normally Normally, neurotoxins are used by the animal for their own protection, or they use it to capture their prey. However, a person unfortunate enough to be exposed to a neurotoxin through a sting or a bite can be experience the harmful effects, which may include paralysis, irregular heartbeat and breathing, and sometimes even death. So, how neurotoxins produce their effect? They always produce their effect by interfering with the chemical activities of the nerve or by altering the process of synaptic transmission. Okay, sometimes they enhance action potential by increasing the firing of neuron to release their excitatory neurotransmitters, and in some cases they just decrease it by occupying their postsynaptic receptors, etc. So, it may cause spastic paralysis or flaccid paralysis. So now we will have a look on some of these toxins. For example, Latrotoxin, and it's a neurotoxin in black widow spider venom, and it causes massive presynaptical neurotransmitter release at neuromuscular junction like acetylcholine, and it will definitely induce severe muscle contraction. So, as a result, a person bitten by a black widow often has painful muscle cramps and difficulty in breathing, and it causes spasticity. Okay, and this contraction causes stiffness or tightness of the muscles and can interfere with normal movement and speech of the patient. So, as we know that what acetylcholine do, it of course it is an excitatory neurotransmitter, so it will cause excitation in the postsynaptic cell, and the postsynaptic cell is your muscle. So when there will be increase in the release of acetylcholine, then it will definitely lead towards stiffness and tightness of the muscles. And the next point is Alpha-bungarotoxin. Okay, so Alpha-bungarotoxin is found in the venom of cobras. It blocks neurotransmitter receptors at the neuromuscular synapses. Okay, what does it mean? That it will prohibit the interaction of acetylcholine molecule, okay, transmitted from nerve endings surrounding the diaphragm muscles and with the receptor site on the diaphragm muscles. So what this neurotoxin is basically doing, what's the mechanism of action? It's going to bind the receptors. What receptors? The receptors that are present on the postsynaptic cell. Okay, when it will bind to these receptors, there will be no space, there will be no place for acetylcholine to bind with the receptors. So it binds to the receptor sites of postsynaptic membrane and will block them from interacting with acetylcholine molecule. In this case, muscle contraction won't happen and will ultimately lead toward paralysis, a flaccid paralysis. Okay, even this venom molecule will not immediately break down and vacate the receptor sites, and therefore a person bitten by cobra may experience severe muscle paralysis, and it may be a feeling of numbness and paralysis. So the next one is Conotoxin, the neurotoxin found in the venom of marine cone snail, and it has so many mechanism of actions, like that is, it may prevent action potentials or neurotransmitter release, or it can block neurotransmitter receptors. So a sting from the cone snail results in pain, numbness, paralysis, and sometimes even death, as its mechanism showing that it's inhibiting action potential, so it will definitely lead toward the flaccid paralysis. So there are few of the 100 neurotoxins that exist in nature. Neurotoxins are made by a variety of bacteria, fungi, plant, and animal. Though they are scary substances, neurotoxins can also be beneficial, and they can be used in controlled environment. For example, scientists use neurotoxins as tool in the laboratory to block synaptic transmission as a way to learn more about this process. And sometimes doctors use them, like one is bacterial botulinum neurotoxin, that is known as Botox, and we use Botox to treat patients with abnormal muscle spasms, because Botox causes muscle relaxation, so it alleviates the pain that comes from muscle spasm. Although the Food and Drug Administration has also approved Botox for cosmetic purpose of reducing frown lines, so it's often used incorrectly to reduce the facial wrinkles, and this may put patient at risk of unwanted muscle weakness, so it must be avoided. We will make a separate video on Botox treatment and its possible side effect. So guys, although neurotoxins have some beneficial medical uses, and even though some antivenoms are also available, but you should still be careful to approach any potential dangerous creature when swimming or exploring. So that is enough with today lecture, and if you have any question or any query, please comment me, and if you like this, please like my video and subscribe my channel for more educational videos, and thank you. Allah Hafiz.